Good morning, good afternoon, everybody.
Morning, Grace. Morning, everyone.
Morning, afternoon. There's Professor Evans.
I feel as if I should put up one of those screens that lots of people have that sort of covers up all the mess. But then I wouldn't be authentic then, so I'm not going to do that.
Well, I'm as cranky as anything this morning, so I'll be authentic, not a happy chappy. Hi, Aidan. How you doing?
Hey, when are you not cranky, Grace?
Very funny, William. Very, very funny. Maybe it's because I've got a son like you, hey?
What do you mean? Anyone would be blessed to have me.
Is that so?
Anyone would love to have me as a son.
There you go, Christine. You can have William.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Good, William, you're welcome to come anytime.
Oh, thank you, Christine. Yeah, you're much nicer than Grace.
Having heard about what nice means, I don't know whether that's a compliment or not.
All right, oh, that's a good thing then.
Okay, thank you. You watch the words.
How's everyone's week? Anything exciting, anything bad, good and ugly to share?
I think I just embrace the pain and the pleasure, Grace.
Oh, of course, Steve.
Never have a week without both of them. So
yeah, I mean, your mother-in-law's left, hasn't she?
Yeah, yeah, she did. Yeah, it was so funny. I said to her at 4 o'clock, I said, I'll be able to take you home, Kath, at 6 o'clock. And I just turned away for a minute, and 10 minutes later at 4:10, I came out and her bags were packed at the end of the hallway, just ready to go straight away. So it was clearly the balance was she was ready to go and I was ready for her to go.
Maybe she had enough of your presence too, Steve.
Oh, I'm sure she did. But I mean, come on, Grace, how could you, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think everyone will get sick of Steve after a while.
Yep, that's there's no argument here, Will, for sure.
Well, what I wanted to share this morning really is you guys, most of you guys, are involved in Global Wealth Club. So we look at 7 areas of your life. And so really I wanted to just get a health check where everyone's this morning in all of your 7 areas of your life. We did this yesterday, hey, Christine? And it's and it's a good exercise just to reflect and introspect where you're at, particularly with the Mercury retrograde just passed, and now we're into Saturn retrograde. So I think personally, if we can have a look, what I'll do is I actually haven't done a pretty PowerPoint about the 7 areas of your life, but I'll just share the script. It's not a notes of the 7 areas of your life, and it summarizes where we want to be. Where ideally would like to be in that position in all 7 areas of your life. So I'll share the screen. So it'd be great if everyone can participate. Just jump in with me. So that normally Christine, Steve, and William, we're not all on our own. So now, okay, just hold on a sec while I'll get the page. Okay.
While that's coming up, Grace, I just wanted to share. I was listening to a D Martini thing. Must have been last week, and maybe it was this week. And one of the things he said was that cursing is good because it releases endorphins. So if you're imbalanced in any of these coming up 7 areas of your life, saying fuck is okay. Oh, I feel so much better already. There you go.
I was certainly doing that just a few minutes ago before I hopped in. All I knew, I was throwing stuff. I was throwing a tantrum internally.
Oh, were you
Warren?
doing this PowerPoint, Grace?
Pardon?
Were you doing this PowerPoint, were you?
No, I wasn't doing this PowerPoint. Can you see
Was it-
my screen?
Was it Warren induced?
Oh, you're funny, Steve. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
Hmm. Well, Warren's always a good trigger for me, but at the end of the day, it's my stuff, isn't it? It's my issues, it's my pressure cooker, everything internally. So really, it goes back to me in all my actions from the external. So there's certainly a lot of things happening internally for me. So let's have a look at this. So these are the 7 areas of, as you guys know, I do a lot of John Martini work, and this is specifically geared to what he focuses on. And I like to go with that because it just covers holistically everything about us, apart from parallel universe and all those things, all the esoteric. So just to bring it to practicality, how's everyone in all your areas of your life? Let's just have a reflection, have a read. This is kind of summarizes where ideally, for me, for example, I like to be in this position in all 7 areas of my life. And obviously there's things that I'm weak at, there's things that I'm stronger. There's other areas in my life I'm still transitioning and working, chipping away constantly. And I guess that's where your rule number 6 comes in, hey Steve, where just having fun in the journey, enjoying the journey rather than the result, the outcome, and focusing on the outcome. And you know, society is very much goal orientated, but if we really walk on the spiritual path, it's all about the journey. And the only person we can compare ourselves is to how we were yesterday, what our state was yesterday, and no one else. So I'll be quiet for now. That sounds like you, Steve, saying that. And have a read, and let's just have a discussion, open discussion of where you're at.
To be honest, I just feel very focused right now. Feel very motivated.
Are you, William?
Yeah, right now, I feel very focused on career and finances and getting that really good. Because, well, it's like I told you, I love it more than anything at the moment.
So vocationally and financially, mentally, spiritually, you'd be focused?
Yes.
And I know you're absolutely socializing to a T.
Yep.
How about physically?
Oh, you mean like physical what stuff? Yeah, well, I haven't. Well, I don't do like a typical physical exercise like sports and all. But yesterday I did do some firewood chopping, so there's that.
Firewood chopping? Where did you do that?
Well, me and my friends, we were gonna have a fire last night, so then we went down to the bush, got some wood, and we chopped it down.
And what, brought it back home?
Yeah.
And where was the fire held? Can I ask?
What?
Where did you put the fire?
Just in the back. Well, just in the back, obviously.
Okay, the backyard.
Yeah, because there's a lot of space, as you know. a lot of space, like with the dirt and all. Yeah.
It's like camping out the back, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like camping at the back. Remember, I did do that as a kid, a camp at the back.
Yeah, you certainly did. Excellent.
Yeah, so it was great fun. But yeah, physically, that certainly could use some work, if I'm being honest. Because yeah, that's just not my highest value, as John DiMartini would say.
Mm.
But yeah, sometimes though, if I feel tense or something, I'll go for a walk, but that's about it.
Mm. So how do you keep yourself focused? What's the main thing that you do to get you focused and um, walking on your path?
Well, I think it's doing constant clearings on myself, like getting energy clearings and all, and having you and Dad to keep me accountable to. Well, having someone to account to, while also making sure that have the commitment and that work. I think really it comes down to making a start. I think the reason people lose focus is because they don't start something. Well, because when you start something, it's like it gives like momentum. Kind of reminds me of a car. You're not going to drive it anywhere if you don't use the key to ignite it. So you kind of need something to ignite that focus.
Or it's like the gym. I don't like going to the gym early, but then when you're actually there and you get started with the first exercise, then you get focused. So
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, that's why people struggle with the gym because they don't make the start.
well, yeah, once you're actually there, then
Yeah.
it's smooth flowing from there.
Well, exactly. Once you make that start and lift that first weight, it just comes natural, really.
Mm. So how about you, Edward? How are you going with all 7 areas of your life?
Well, yeah, I would say pretty good in all of them. Mainly socially would be the one I'm lacking in, I'd say, but
Ain't that the truth?
Well, what's socially to you?
Let's see. Well, I don't know if it's referring to socially in terms of leaving a legacy, or if it's more social, like talking to people or stuff like that.
Okay, because if you have a look at, again, we're working in ourselves, aren't we? We're developing and progressing ourselves and continually working in ourselves. And so socially it just means is the impact that you create in the community. So do you think you're impacting the community in around your circle within that social? Because social in these terms doesn't mean, you're going out with friends and, just going out for a beer and getting drunk. Hey, William. Or just going out for a cup of teas and just socializing. In this context, social means how you influencing within your circle, within the community of Fremantle, the community of Perth, Western Australia, that kind of thing. So you go from micro, macro to vice versa. And so that's why when you look at the summary there, generates leadership qualities. So asking yourself, am I in what I'm doing and in my actions, am I influencing? Am I doing a because if we are working in a energy transformation, am I actually affecting my social circle?
Well, I'd say it's starting small. So especially the people we work with, obviously, starting small, influencing, and with the youth work, even though it's starting small with the stuff that we're doing for the youth, those weekly Thursday webinars. But yeah, I'd say it's having an influence on the people showing up and all that. So it's just that starting step. So I would say so that it's having.
So yeah, so you noticed that when you first said about the social, you thought about just socializing, having get together. That's part of our programming and conditioning, isn't it? To socialization. So socialization really is, what we've been, what society has put in there in terms of how we socialize, whether it's dancing, whether it's creating different clubs. But if we, in the context of the universal law and the spiritual walk, so really the social side is affecting where you are actually going out and affecting your energy to the external world. So there's a huge difference in the socialization to working in the spiritual, isn't there?
Well, yeah, exactly. There is. It's like a lot of people make socializing out that you need to do it. Especially one person who comes to mind is our beloved Nana, just saying that you want to make some friends, you want to socialize, do all this, meet some friends, and so then you can enjoy them and have lifelong friends and all that. But the thing is, everyone has different values, obviously, and that's just not the value of mine at the moment. Mine's more in career and personal growth, not really making friends. So it's like when other people project their values onto you, then that's what happens. But yeah, socially, I'm quite fulfilled there because obviously the people that are around us, like Jasmine, Connor, who some of the people here might know, but the people that we work with, I enjoy socializing with them. It's like I don't like going out of my way to meet people that aren't aligned. So I'm actually fulfilled there. It's just in terms of the normal context of what socially means to most people, then it would look like I'm lacking that. So
Oh, but Ed, you'll get lonely. You get lonely, and as an adult say, you'll be very lonely. You need to make some friends. It's so important.
Maybe I'll take that on board, William.
Isn't that an interesting perspective, though? She was encouraging you to look outside of yourself for fulfillment, to be okay. Like her default position is you need friends for X. And so, in other words, look outside of yourself and then you will be okay. It's a really interesting, probably a generational thing as much as a personal spiritual thing.
Yeah, I do agree because it's like feeling isolated or lonely. You can get fulfillment inside of yourself just by focusing on spiritual growth. You don't need friends to validate that.
No.
I mean, obviously, it's good being around people that align with you because it gives you that extra boost and you can bounce off each other, be accountable and all that. But just making friends for the sake of it, not feeling lonely, then yeah, right.
Yeah, I'd rather fuck myself, eh?
Well, it just boils down to, gets back to, if you reflect on, meaning of life, what's the meaning in life for you and what your purpose is, what you want to do, all the things that you want to do, all the things you want to experience in this world. Because, it goes to say, we are of this world, but we're not of this world. If we really are walking on this transcendental path, because really we've got to, if we reflect, why do we walk on this path? Why do we walk on this introspective path and reflective path? So it's those things just helps us to really bring more clarity, doesn't it, and uncover what's internal for us. It really boils down to going back in that inward journey and what everything means for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, well, like Ed's mission is that he has a lot of love to give. He's a big softie. He can give lots of love here.
Edward's very loving, aren't you, Ed?
Yeah, he's a lovely boy, isn't he?
You guys love each other. Remember, all for one and one for all, eh?
William acts tough, but we all know he's just a marshmallow.
Yeah, I'm the softest marshmallow.
Hey, where's James? What's James' thoughts on these?
I don't think James is going to actually have confidence to speak up. He's just playing the piano, but a good excuse to not come on camera.
Oh, is he playing the piano?
Yeah.
So, where are you at with other areas of your life, Ed?
Mentally, I'm at a good place because obviously everything going on is always good overcoming challenges, getting more disciplined and all that. So especially mental and physical goes hand in hand for me. Same with finances, because if I keep making sure I'm mentally disciplined and do things I'd prefer not to do, like going to the gym at a certain time, even though most of the time I'm kind of debating with myself whether to go or not. I just go anyway, because I know that if I can mentally discipline myself for a physical exercise, then the same will apply to business, which is obviously one of the things I'm focusing on. So if I'm disciplined with that, then I'll make sure I'm disciplined in business, which that has a direct impact on the financial life. One of the main things I'm focused on, as I mentioned, and the more I get like better financially, then it also helps vocationally, because using money to do things I'm inspired about, focusing on careers I enjoy. Working with team members is obviously getting me a better idea of what I do enjoy, which is part of finding that vocation. So I'm getting a much better idea of that. Same with the youth work that we're doing is giving me a lot more clarity. Spiritually is a little bit different to most people, because obviously William, you, Steve, you guys see spirituality more in terms of energy clearings and all that. So I see spiritual growth for me, especially in business, because that's part of my self-development, is actually getting really focused on that, as well as an energy clearings too. I find it more, I get that by I find that by like going to the beach, for example, or just have like just thinking and pondering. That's where a lot of my clarity comes from spiritually, and listening to stuff like this, listening to other people. That's where I find it. So I'm in a good place there. And physically, I was a bit slack the last during COVID, so I've got a lot more discipline there. Going to the gym a couple of times a week and playing a lot more sports, like going basketball once a week. Just joined a basketball team, so we're starting that
Oh,
with.
did you?
Yeah, I well, not directly. I'm doing more fill-ins right now, but Connor, James, and myself were going to form our own social basketball team, get a few more people to join that, and that season will start in about 6 weeks, I'd say, or 7 weeks. But in the meantime, we're doing basketball every week just to get some practice in and doing a few games here and there.
Yeah, good luck recruiting me like you've been trying to. Like, you're not getting me in there.
Hey, everyone on here heard William directly say that physical needs some work. So my argument is that if William needs some physical growth, then what better place to start with his brother and his friends, and then to form a basketball team, because he has people to keep him accountable.
You want to fight, do you?
But
Want to fight now?
am I wrong? Everyone here heard that you need physical to get that up. So what better place to start than basketball?
Or maybe like it's something I actually like.
But you'll just debate with yourself, so you don't like the gym, you don't like sports, so then you won't do it anyway.
I do like gym.
But your actions don't show that.
So in the drama triangle, where's Edward and where's William, guys?
We're just having a good laugh here, nothing personal.
No, it's just giving me shit. That's what we do.
That's great. How do you, in terms of checklisting yourself all the time, Edward, how do you measure yourself with 7 areas of your life?
I haven't really been doing that. Physically, it's obviously just measuring my weight on the scales and then seeing if I'm going up or not. And business, obviously, we have reports and all that, making sure, as you have been emphasizing, getting those together so we can properly measure where we're at currently, which obviously will have a direct impact to my personal finances. So getting a lot more discipline there, getting the right reports and data. So that's how I measure that, is the analytics in business financially, and also our growth. Mentally is more the actions I take. So I see if I commit to the schedule, setting a schedule for my week, especially for physical exercise, and making sure I stick to it. And if I don't like go one day, then I make up for it. Like, for example, this week I didn't go to the gym one day, so I just went another day to make sure I I met the amount of times I was saying I would. And yeah, that's kind of how I measure, is more mentally.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add?
No, there's nothing. No, not at the moment.
Well, this is a real honour to have you here today, Edward. You normally don't turn up, let alone put the camera on.
Is this the first time that Ed has come on here, like on camera and talk?
He's come on before, but it's a rare occasion that he comes on.
I guess it was like a treat then, wasn't it?
Mm.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
another thing too, I'll add on vacation is that one thing, as you would know, is that growing up I was always pretty shy. So then one thing I wanted to do is get more confident and discipline in that area. So just offering to do some public speaking is the way I did that, because obviously part of self-growth is overcoming challenges and not just hiding away from the fear, just actually feeling it, like feeling the fear, and then despite feeling that, then going out and doing it. So public speaking, for example, obviously I was shitting myself, and that's why the weekly youth stuff that we do, that you came on this recent Thursday, has been good, because it's given me a lot more confidence when I speak publicly. And I know that even though it's small, like even though public speaking is small and overcoming that fear, then if I can do that, then it will lead to bigger things. It's like the E-Myth talks about, if you do the little things right, then it'll lead to the bigger things, and how you do that. So if you're half-assed going to the gym or doing physical exercise, then you'll probably be half-assed in your finances. So that's why the little things all add up, and that's why the little fears I have is I'm working on overcoming them bit by bit, and recognizing that, and then overcoming it, and then the bigger stuff I'm more afraid of doing, then I know I'll get there the more I overcome the small ones.
I think I've heard you say too, it's the turning up and the consistency of turning up.
Well, yeah, it is. It's like, if you want to have self-growth, then you're kind of half-assed showing up, and you come one week, don't come the next, then you come to another one, come to the next one, then not the other one. That's inconsistent. So obviously part of self-growth is being consistent. It's like if you want to become an NBA player, and then you say, oh, I'll come to this workout, but not that one because I don't feel like it, then you're not going to make the NBA, or you're not going to get favored by your coach because you're inconsistent. Michael Jordan would have been like incredibly consistent in his diet, his workouts, shooting practice, and all that. So he would have showed up every time. And it's what they talk about in Relentless. You just keep showing up no matter how you feel. Because if you live your life by emotions and the feeling, well then, rather than just living it by rather than just living by if you just live by rationality, then you've got to be rational in how you do things, especially if you're committed to growth. So showing
Well,
up.
yeah, it's about being a cleaner.
Well, yeah, it's like for you, William, if you had friends who sometimes showed up to your parties or sometimes didn't, even though they said they would, they'd not be in your good books. So it's like, if you keep telling yourself you'll show up to something but you don't, then you're just letting yourself down. So and you're just being lazy, and that's the way I see it.
Well, exactly. Well, it's not just about showing up, but even about being like there first, being there early.
Well, yeah.
And when you're the one pushing for it to happen.
Well, that's the thing, because coming to like different self-development things, then if you tell yourself you want self-development, then you don't come to a lot of them, and you just come when you feel like it. It doesn't really matter like who's teaching or who you're listening to. They don't care what you're going through, but you're just letting yourself down if you're just being half-assed about things like that. So if you want to commit, then you commit 100%, not 50 or 45.
No, you go all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes back to really it's accountability to yourself. Are you actually, what kind of game are you playing, isn't it? Because you guys talking about sports and all that. So what game are you playing in this life? And where do you want to head? Where do you want to go? And how you want to journey? So turning up, participating is all really accountability and the seriousness in yourself. So, anyone else like to share? So it's been great what you've been sharing, you guys. Anyone else like to voice, or if you, now that we've got Edward and William on screen, if anyone's got a question towards these guys and how they work the 7 areas of their life.
Yeah, there you go. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. It's a rare treat when you get the sexy guy William himself, right, on camera.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyone's blessed when they see this face.
Yeah, I agree with that. They are blessed because they realize how good looking they are when they see you.
And you feel the
No,
magnetism in William.
yeah, you can feel the magnetism. You can't help but be drawn to this light.
I remember that meme, that gorilla meme where it's like, sometimes when I feel down or ugly, I just see my brother and realize that I'm actually blessed.
Yeah. Oh, fuck off. Says you.
I'll stay centered, you guys. Anyone else like to share?
Oh, because you don't want to get roasted, hey?
Yeah, I'll jump in to break things up.
That'd be great, Aidan. Thank you.
No, just looking at the list, sort of looking at where I'm sort of wait for that bike to go past. Where I'm sort of doing okay and falling apart at the moment, not doing that well. I sort of looked at it and think, well, hang on. Socially and vocationally, areas I can probably pick up on, and it's rather ironic given what Ed said before. It was an interesting perspective because effectively the vocational side for Ed is what's being used as a springboard for socially. But yeah, between the two of them, vocationally is the one that I need to still need to get well and truly up on order because it's not going anywhere at the moment. I don't know. Did that make any sense to anyone? Probably didn't.
No, it makes sense, Aidan. Obviously, you're working on the clarity of the direction where you want to do in the doing of your life.
Yeah, vocationally, which direction to go. I've got a general idea, but it's not really that specific, and there's probably more that needs to be added to it in order to get that fulfillment, I guess.
So, yeah, that fulfillment. How, have you been working in yourself, and are you being kind to yourself in terms of, you know, your finding your direction,
Well,
coming down, asking questions?
The interesting thing is this spiritual, mental, and physical side are actually not too bad at the moment. The spiritual side is sort of working through quite well, sort of keeping alert and aware as to what's going on in the world and what's going on around me. And given what's going on around just about everyone at the moment, it would be very, very easy to get quite despondent. But I don't know. I seem to be able to sort of cope and deal with the mental, the despondent mental energies sort of getting around better than a lot. I think it's a bit hard to see and a bit hard to gauge sometimes, but I think I'm actually not doing too bad. The spiritual side is it's pretty much on song. It's just some of the familial side obviously is not obviously is actually in a fairly good position, oddly enough. Financially, I need to be careful with that and maintain it. But yeah, those three, spiritual, mental, and physical, are actually doing quite well.
Wonderful.
But yeah, it's just the vocational and the social side I need to pull up, and I think running off the back of what Ed said, I think the social side might naturally develop once I get the vocational in order. So I certainly resonate with what he said, not necessarily having to go out and socialise and have beers and get drunk and all that kind of rubbish. You get that fulfilment through the people that you actually work with. But
Yeah.
vocational, what's the best way of describing it at the moment? It's my vocational position at the moment is quite nebulous. It's not going in any one particular direction.
Mm.
So it's like being at sea in a fog at the moment. So dead flat and can't see 100 metres in front of you. So that's something I do need to get in order. But
Yeah.
but the other
Well-
areas are good. So it's interesting, sort of being able to reflect and sort of look at that and seeing where I need to where I need to work and what I need to work on.
Mm. Yeah, it's good to have a target in front of you anyway. It's a gauge, isn't it? It's always good to have a gauge measurement. Let me ask Edward. Edward, you've been listening to Aiden. For yourself, I mean, Dad and I have always been conscious about not pushing you guys to what we do, and we allowed you to do what you guys want to do. I always said, if you want to be a garbage collector, be the best garbage collector, and whatever you put your hands on in terms of what you want to, how you earn your money, then you just do your best. So what I want to ask Edward is, what makes you, or how did you come into clarity in your career, in your direction? How did you find that this is what you want, and it's so clear for you?
Well, for me, it was good listening to what Aiden said, because I do agree. I think we have similar stuff. For me, like, for example, obviously you and Dad are quite spiritually driven. So you guys, my idea when I was growing up of spirituality was that it's meditating, like getting in your bed, like just breath work, like like that, that qigong.
Do you remember our meditation, hey?
Also,
Yeah, who could forget that one, eh?
also
Yeah.
for example, doing chants, and I'll get to the point shortly, but you'll see why I'm saying this. Doing chants and all that. So I always, growing up, had an idea that was what spirituality was, but the more I tried different things, I realized that I find spiritual fulfillment in different things. And I worked it out by trying different things, as simple as that. So with my vacation, for example, you would remember when I was 12, I first started YouTube when I was gaming. I've had a lot of enjoyment out of that, so I enjoyed doing YouTube. Trying that out, which is kind of involves obviously recording, figuring things out, problem solving, because I had to work out. I didn't realize at the time, but I was obviously having to problem solve and like do research and work things out myself, like video editing, how to download different things, upload, and all that. So I did enjoy the challenge and figuring all that stuff out at the time. After that, I got a bit bored of it, so I tried graphic design, selling some graphics. So I worked that out, worked out how to do graphics and all that just by watching YouTube and all that. Then after I eventually got bored of graphic design, so then I tried some different sports out, found some enjoyment in that, did PT with Connor, obviously, and enjoyed that physical side. Then when I was about 14, I wanted to learn business with Dad, as you'd remember. So I asked him if I can get and like mentored by his staff. So I tried different things in the business, like back, which this was in WellSafe. So tried out things like admin work, tried out marketing, like copywriting, tried out like building landing pages, membership sites and all that. And just by trying all of these different things, I worked out what I enjoyed and what I didn't. And then also, obviously, I tried public speaking, as people who come to our events, they would know. So I tried that out. And yeah, so really in simple terms, is just trying different things out. I also listened to a lot of self-development stuff and showed up to different business seminars. Kind of figured out what resonates with me and what doesn't, because obviously you encourage us to figure out, like, to listen and take parts which resonate with us and question everything. So I've just by listening to different stuff, I worked out what philosophies relate to me and what doesn't. made them my own. So that's in terms of the spiritual side. In terms of the vocation, main thing is just trying out a lot of different things. It was easier for me, obviously, because I didn't have any responsibilities. So I was kind of exposed to being able to do a lot of different things, and being able to have that flexibility to just stop something if I wanted to. But that's really it, is just trying different things. And if you lose interest in something, then not beating yourself up over it, just realize that you probably don't enjoy it and there's something better for you. Because when I had a pretty bad habit of starting and stopping things, and I used to get discouraged by that, thinking I wasn't consistent. But I just realized it's just not my value, and that things that I do enjoy, I'm always consistent at. Like, for example, eating good, I've always been consistent at, because I value my physical health. And different things I've always been consistent at. It's just the things I lost interest in, which obviously shows it's not my highest value in terms of vacation. Then just quitting things and losing interest is just a sign that I've got to try something new. So that's also part of being adaptable to change. You've got to embrace change and like be open to it and just figure things out as you go. So over time, the things I mainly realized in terms of my vacation that fulfills me is something that involves a challenge and figuring things out. Something that involves like a lot of variety, because doing one thing I lose interest in, but if I have a lot of like variety in front of me, then I get vacationally fulfilled doing a lot of things, or overseeing things. And yeah, which involves a lot of skills. That's why I obviously enjoy managing business, because I get to oversee marketing, get to be involved in certain processes, get to be involved in public speaking if I want to, and all that. So and all of that started from YouTube. So YouTube obviously involved marketing, it involves different things. So just worked out by trying different things is the main message, I suppose.
So the message I get from you is just working out by just diving in there and trying things out, what you don't and what you do like, shifting through that.
Yeah, exactly. For example, I tried cryptos about a year ago or something, and I enjoyed it for about 3 months, but then I lost interest in it. So that's when James and Connor started enjoying cryptos a lot more. So we just made an agreement with Dad that they would just manage that side and we would run the business. So
And also you tried your hands on options trading, didn't you?
yeah,
You did courses on options trading.
yeah, I did realize that was batshit boring, so I stopped doing that and just put my focus into things that I enjoyed and just got focusing. Right now, I'm just focusing on developing skills that I want to master.
Good.
I don't know if that
Hmm.
don't know if that resonates with Aiden, but that's pretty much what my main answer to your question is.
How'd you find that, Aiden?
Oh, the last part of that was an interesting thing to hear. I haven't got started on it yet, but I'm thinking very strongly about getting into options trading. So batshit boring. Wow. Something to think about. I don't know. I may or may not respond the same way. So I'll just dive into it and sort of see how I go with that. I think, given some of the vocational directional training I've had, it's a natural progression for me to sort of start going in that direction. And I think too, with where the world's at, sort of doing something vocationally alone rather than having to sort of mix with too many people, and run the risk of sort of having to work with people who aren't of the same mind. It's probably a good thing for me to get into in any case, particularly now that, given that I've got that training under my belt, having worked with Derek. So yeah, interesting perspective, that's for sure. And it's you know, there's certainly bits and pieces to sort of take away from that. I knew there was a reason why I'd come here and come on this morning. I just didn't know what it was, so it's been really useful.
Yeah, that's good. And the main thing is trying out different things for yourself, because obviously I find options trading boring as shit, but you might enjoy it. So it's like mainly just trying out things, and obviously you can listen to what I say and take it on board, but at the end of the day, you got to make that decision for yourself. So it's like if I asked you, Mum, what should I do, and you told me that you really enjoy one-on-one transformation work with people, and you said that it's really fun and I'll enjoy it. And I took on board what you said, and then I went out and did one-on-one transformation work. Can you imagine how I would find that?
Yeah, you'll grow grey hairs, Ed.
I would probably get fired by the client in the first 30 minutes or something, because I just tell them to calm down or something and just like get really annoyed. So obviously if I listen to you and end up doing it and spending time there, then
You can always practice on Steve.
I'm sure Steve would love that.
Yeah, let's go, Ed.
What is Ed, are you talking about like the spiritual thing?
Well, yeah, it's like because obviously me and you, William, we like different things. Because
Yeah.
let's say I asked you, for example, what should I do with my career, and you told me just don't do business because it's batshit boring, and I didn't, and I decided not to do it because you said that. Then I wouldn't get to experience it and make the decision for myself whether it's for me or not. Whereas,
Yeah.
and it's like for you, if you ask me, what's my perspective on doing energy clearings one-on-one with clients, and I told you that it's boring as hell, so don't do it. So then you wouldn't get to have the fulfillment you have. So
Yeah, well, we both are very different people.
exactly.
Well, it's interesting because Edward, you and James did the options trading course together, and there's James running with it, and you end up being in business, the day-to-day running of the business, and James decided to be the trader. So what about you, William? What makes you clear that this is what you want to do in your vocation, that you want to do transformation energy work? How did it come about for you that it was clear this is what you're called to do?
Well, I think the biggest one was it's really been this since I was a baby, because you told me this that whenever other kids were sick or something, I would cry, right? And I would feel the pain and everything.
Yeah, you go up to the person, put your hand on them, and do your baby talk, and actually do the energy work then.
Well, that's what I mean, because I've always loved it. Well, because I mean, everything that school had to offer with lawyers or being a doctor or something, I didn't like any of that, and I especially hated school, and it made me miserable and suicidal in year 7 and 8, especially. I remember Warren showed me an energy healing that he learned from Ed Structure, and then it set me free of my depression, and you could say it was love at first sight. And that's when I knew that this is what I wanted. Because, then when you and Warren homeschooled me, then as you remember, I studied it for hours and hours, and I'd watch all the webinars. And it looked funny because in school I wouldn't pick up any books, and I couldn't pay attention for more than 5 minutes. Then you see me on this, and I was skipping meals just to keep studying. And I'm like, no, Mom, 5 more minutes. And then I kept studying it, and of course I got guinea pigs once I started learning the real protocols of the healing. So I got guinea pigs you remember Ed, I got you, I got Grace, I got Warren, and
of course, don't forget your gym buddy, your spiritual gym buddy.
Yeah, Steve came a bit later though. This was before I really accelerated. But because I mean, and then I remember it really accelerated after I went to a healing retreat in 2018, late 2018. Because before that, I could do the healing protocols and heal people, but I couldn't quite read them to the extent that. Remember, Grace, you said you read into the energy of people.
Yeah.
So and you taught me how to do that, because I mean, I wasn't able to do that before the healing retreat, but straight after I was able to do it like a natural talent, almost like it unlocked something within me. And since that day, especially, that's when I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Well, another thing too is always looking back in the past what you enjoyed doing. Because remember what got you started, William? You started with a lot of card tricks or magic tricks, which obviously people would consider energy clearings magic if you get cleared. So that's one
Yeah.
part. When me and you first started, when you started doing card tricks, I was pretty much recording you, and you're doing social media. So that pretty much shows that we were obviously different, and kind of gave me a launch into figuring out social media and all that. So I actually did card tricks like me and James did before you, and got you started. For Aiden, one thing that I realized about myself was that I enjoy figuring things out, and once I feel like I've got something nailed, then I lose interest and get bored. So that's why I enjoy doing business, because I can, like, if there's something messy, I can work on fixing it. Then once it's there, I can hand it over to someone else. Whereas William, you prefer mastering something like energy clearings, which is why you did that.
Well, yeah, and I'm very obsessive, because once I start something, I don't stop till it's done, kind of thing. And that's why we worked well when we did the card tricks. Well, because I could run wild and like cause a scene, but then I didn't have that stability, and then you could bring it in.
Yeah, it's interesting understanding, Ed. I can just resonate with what William said too. You got to see it through to completion. I guess getting back to the options side of the fence, what can make it more interesting for me is that I can bring in different different facets of my knowledge, experience, and understanding in order to try and make it interesting, and to make it work a little bit better for me. So, yeah, it just really does show how different people are, and what drives them, and what works for them, and it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure is. I'm actually, I mean, like you, Edward, I've always loved sales, and I'd envision owning a business, but not running it. So be a complete business owner, and having staff and having a team to actually run the business that I want to be involved. So that's been my vision since I was a teenager, actually. And I wanted to have my own business, but as I say, it's someone else running it, but I'm owning the business. And they're like William, touching into my spiritual side, the transformation, the energy work. I couldn't ignore it either, because of the we all have giftings in some form, and the universe kind of squeezed me into getting into the energy work, because if I was doing something else, if I was focused on something else, it just did not. I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't content. I was chaos. I was all over the place. But as soon as I can get into the energy work and transformation, development, assisting others, serving others, even though it has its challenges and it's not an easy path, it's not an easy job, but there's a fulfillment in the vocation, in what I'm doing. So my gauge for me is the fulfillment in the purpose that I'm doing, no matter how challenging it is or how hard. I don't see it that way. I just see that it just brings more clarity and true fulfillment and meaning in my life, and that's my metrics for myself.
Yeah.
Mm.
I do agree. It's like, for you obviously a DeMartini facilitator, and that would have taken years to actually study all the books he did and attend all of his seminars and webinars. And I know for myself, I could not do that. It's like studying all of the DeMartini stuff, I couldn't be consistent at that, because I would lose interest in it. But then I feel the same about options trading. If I have to study it really hard and understand all the technicalities behind it to make a good income from it, I couldn't do that, and I know that about myself. But someone like Aiden might be able to do that because you know the benefits they'll get if you master it. Obviously, can create a good passive income if you learn it properly and master it. But for me, the result at the end of it for me just doesn't feel like the effort to get there is worth it. Whereas for me, business obviously has a lot of challenges to overcome, and that's why I personally enjoy businesses, because you get exposed to a lot of variety. You get to deal with marketing, you get to do like work with sales processes and procedures, operations and all that. So just having that variety, whereas options is only like very technical, which is not really me. That's just why it's good for the individual to just try out what works for them, because and just not, you can take on board what I say or what you say, Mom, but at the end of the day, you've got to try it yourself and make the decision for yourself whether it resonates and works for you or not. And as I'm sure you'd agree.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So before Warren hops on, is there anyone else who'd like to share what we've been discussing today? So it's a really pertinent topic, because it's not just the doing, the vocation, what we do, because it's really the inspiration in your heart, isn't it? Finding your purpose, finding your calling. So that kind of thing.
Oh, Grace, just quick. I think it's about loving yourself for who you are, not who you're supposed to be. And being able to know what that is, because with a lot of upbringing, conditional love and all that sort of thing, it can be very difficult to navigate your way through with that supposed to be as to who you truly are. So I just wanted to make that comment. Yeah.
The navigating and finding the compass to your true north, hey?
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's about being a narc like Warren would be, hey?
Loving yourself for who you are, but also working to who you want to become. So for example, if I said to me that, like, let's say I was just lazy in my disciplinary actions, for example, and I just say, oh, that's just who I am. I'm kind of go with the flow type of person, and that's just who I am. But obviously for the results I want to achieve, then I've got to be disciplined. So loving myself for who I am, for being spontaneous and go with the flow, but also knowing that if I just stay like that, just stay who I currently am, then I'm not going to have growth. So just knowing that I've loved me for who I am right now, but then also take the steps to become who I need to be if I want to be a top business owner, for example, knowing and taking those steps. So if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, well, really, it's about attacking your weaknesses and making them a strength.
Well, yeah, it is. It's
Well,
like,
because I mean, as you know, you're very organized and very preparing, whereas you know that I'm naturally not. So that's what I've been working on this last month or two, really getting organized and getting good at that.
well, yeah, it's good.
Yes,
William.
yeah. What's that?
I was just going to say, imagine for you, for example, let's just say you just admitted that you're not really organized, and let's just say you told yourself, I love myself for who I am. I'm a love and light healer, and I'm spontaneous and all that. And you just said if people don't love me for that and they get annoyed because I'm unorganized, that's their problem. Now, let's say you said that. I'm sure somehow people may not want to go to you, but like you said, you're working on being organized, and I'm sure everyone's noticing that you work on being organized, because to be a good healer, then you've got to improve those weaknesses. So pretty much in simple terms, loving yourself for who you are right now, but also embracing who you have to become and making sure you take the steps to get there.
Well, that's the whole point. People don't really change unless there's a disruption. So it's about disrupting and really challenging. Well, it's like you need someone who will be there to love and support you, but also someone who will challenge you and kick your ass when you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it'll be you and Warren doing the energy work after this, William.
Yeah, no, he and I have got something special today.
Excellent. So, okay, what we'll do is next stage is, Steve, if I can get you to do the mind and heart coherence, I really appreciate that.
Yep, sure.
And then after that, it's over to Warren and William.
All right. Okay, so let's go through the 3 steps. So I'll just invite you to close your eyes and to gently touch your heart space, either with a palm or a finger or 2 fingers. For some reason, I like to have both my hands over my heart space, sort of crossed over a little bit. And the reason we do this is, but it's a choice of whatever feels comfortable. The reason we touch our heart center is to shift our awareness, because our awareness always goes to the place on the body where we feel the touch. And so it draws our awareness from the busyness of our mind and into our heart space. It sends a signal to our entire being that I'm turning my attention inward. So that's step number 1, touching your heart space to shift awareness. And step number 2 is to slow our breathing. So I invite you to breathe in through the nose for a count of 5, to hold for a count of 5, and then out through the mouth for a count of 5. And we'll do that 3 times. So just with me, in through the nose for 5, hold for 5, out through the mouth for 5. And again, in through the nose for 5, hold for 5, out through the mouth for 5. Once more. Hold and release. And when we do this, it tells the body that we're in a safe place, because the only time that we ever breathe this way is when we feel safe. And it's a signal to our entire being to let go of stress hormones, the feelings of stress that kind of crop up in our everyday lives. It awakens a healing chemistry, because our bodies can really only do one thing or the other. We can heal or we can stress. And so this breathing this way gives the body permission to awaken that healing chemistry. So again, I invite you to breathe in for a count of 5 from that place you feel the touch, to hold for 5, and release through the mouth for 5. And one more time. Hold and release. And that's step number 2, to slow our breathing. Step number 1 was to shift our awareness. Step number 2, to slow our breathing. And step number 3 is to create a feeling. And we're the only species on the planet that can do this. So I invite you to create a feeling in your heart from the place you feel the touch, from that place you were just breathing from, to the best of your ability, to feel one or a combination of care, appreciation, gratitude, or compassion from that place you feel the touch for anyone or anything in your life. Researchers found that these 4 key words, they trigger that connection between the heart and the brain. So to the best of your ability, to feel the feeling of one or a combination of care, appreciation, gratitude, or compassion for anyone or anything in your life from that place you feel the touch. And to sit with that feeling for a few moments. Just invite you to take one more slow, deep breath in for a count of 5. And hold. And then release. And with our heart and mind in coherence, I'll hand over to Warren and Will by the sounds of it. And I'll hand over to Warren and William. Take 2.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for Warren. Where is he?
I don't know, man. Where is he?
Oh,
My camera.
there he is.
My camera was knocked off. Where's my thing? There it is. Okay, so how you going, my friend?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Pretty good. So, well, yeah, look, I think it's interesting. I mean, we're kind of, last week we talked about witchcraft and that kind of stuff and dark sorcery, and then Edward was talking from one angle, so now you and I are going to be talking about this. So maybe to start by a bit of a, like see a bit of heart-mind coherence, what I might do is just start off with a, like a bit of a protections pyramid activation kind of thing. And then after that, I'll just get you to share, William, what you've been noticing that's been going on in society, then I'll make my comments. How's that?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Okay. So I'm just going to get everyone, this is following on from Steve's heart and mind, which is very much about balancing the mind. So what I'm going to do now is just get my bobber and do some work just to balance everyone's etheric and energy. So just hold on. So I've got this. What this is, it's a chakra chart. So I'm just going to kind of let this show. And we're just going to kind of letting this scramble the bobber, any negative interferences or frequencies, and just get a visualization or mental projection of a tornado or vortex just going anti-clockwise, scrambling any frequencies, curses, hexes, spells, or anything that don't serve.
Okay, I'm really feeling that one.
Yeah, me too. I don't normally start like this, and I just kind of following my instinct. So yeah, there's curses, hexes, spells, anything of that kind, especially around money. Yeah, wow, money, food, and money, you get food, intimacy. Wow. Yeah, so it's interesting. Money, food, and intimacy. I'm getting there's been curses, hexes, spells put on people around that. My bobber's going crazy.
Yeah, I'm really feeling this one.
Fuck. Okay, but slow down now. Now let's just see the tornado going around clockwise to balance and transform the energies into higher frequencies. And just imagine a golden pyramid or white pyramid coming down and just covering this whole group and you individually to activate your energies. We're in by Archangels Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, and Metatron to come and just send them gratitude. And the Lord Yeshua, the Holy Spirit. And we just clear any energies, false spirit guides that no longer serve. Okay. That was good. So William, come back on camera if you like. And before I get you to share, just anyone type if you noticed anything happened to you and we were doing that, because that was kind of not quite expected. But
yeah, I did see things releasing from you too.
Oh really? What do you see releasing?
I saw some witchcraft energies clearing from you from that.
Yeah, wow.
Because I can see that you're feeling a bit at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, the message I got was that there was a bit going on with me, but in a way I was also passing things through for the group and for different people. That was what I also got. So no one got any comments? Yeah, Suzanne, Yeshua came in when you bought the white pyramid. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Judith felt the shift in energy. The anti-clockwise was very strong to push against for me. Yeah. Christine feeling lighter. Yeah. It's very subtle how this works. Very subtle.
Yeah.
Sheldon felt it as well. Miko definitely felt a shift. Awesome. Now, well, there definitely was something happening there. So what have you been noticing, William? Because like I said, it's interesting that the words money, food, and intimacy came to me. That's where people are getting hit a little bit, which I just said it without thinking. And that's when you think about it, money, food, and health and intimacy would be the three ways that people most get, have challenges. And that's what I was getting. So they've been very busy working on that.
Well, yeah, because that's what they've been. Doesn't surprise me because, well, yeah, in those areas, I mean, if people are strapped in those, I mean, then it's easy to break and control them, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, money, food, and what was the other one?
Intimacy.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, because intimacy, it's like the breakdown of the connection, the community, and keep separating people.
Yeah.
Because well, when we're all together, when we have that strong community, then there's nothing that they can do because we'll fight them and burn them down.
Yeah.
But when we're separated, when we're lost, when we're broken, then they can work their way. Then they can work their claws in.
Yes.
Because that's what they've been doing. Well, the worst part about it is that they're very patient. Like they play a very long game. That's what I noticed. And right now, their time is now. They're really striking hard.
Yeah.
The sense I get is now it's time for us to strike harder. Because right now, I've just been noticing the witchcraft and the energies of the planet being entirely corrupted.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing like innocent bloodshed everywhere.
Yeah. Lots of it.
They've been putting curses on people and really just hitting everyone in their weakest areas, and they're hitting them hard. So every issue that people had in the past, it's now being highlighted.
Yeah, well, one thing I'll quickly share to follow on from that, Will, was before I really started doing this work about 2 or 3 years ago again, I can remember I stopped doing it for a long time before that. And the reason why was I just knew that if I put myself in the limelight, I'd be very vulnerable to attack because one of the things I learned years ago is those involved in the shamanic arts, dark witchcraft and voodoo, and they're very advanced. And as Alberto Villoldo and Amazon shamans and Africans explain, they know how good it is. Whereas the Western world, we're very ignorant. Whereas they know that these guys are good. And although the light does overcome the dark, if you have any remote ego or unresolved areas of your life, you can be targeted. And the first few times I attempted to take it on, I got myself whacked around a bit. So I ended up learning from that one and spent a lot of time healing myself and interestingly sorting myself out with money, food, and intimacy. There were the 3 areas: healing my heart, getting my diet sorted out, and getting my financial life in order and integrity. And yeah, because that's the 3 areas that people get targeted heavily because people are very vulnerable in that area. So
well, because with food, think of how many people can easily be addicted to it, or with money, or like it when the lust of money starts to set in.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the scripture said that the heart is wicked, it's deceitful.
Yeah.
Because this has been the whole problem too. People just look on the outward. They don't look at the heart of people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the heart and the energy of someone says everything about them.
Yeah.
That's why even when I read people and when I read the planet, I don't read the physical out appearance, what they look like on the outside. I look into like the abyss, see what's really going on.
Yeah.
Because this planet is in some serious shit, and people need it more than ever right now. People need this warfare.
Well, it's kind of like, yeah, like I just say to people or say to remind myself that I take a shower almost every day. You know, if I miss it, it would be a very rare day. And likewise, when it comes to clearing your body and clearing your energy, that's really important. You know, I get myself checked up very, 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 very regularly to make sure my chakras, my aura, my etheric body's in top shape, and you know, keeping yourself in a very high frequency. Because when you're in a high frequency, you can't really be touched. And as Steve said, food is very interesting, because I remember years ago learning about how there's a lot of stuff that's done to actually curse food, you know, and put symbols on it and kind of use it with people. And that is one of the reasons why the ancients always used to say grace or bless their food, because once you really bless the food and put high vibrations into it, it just neutralizes anything that's been done to it. But yeah, if you don't do that, you know, it can, as you learned with Raymond when you did his workshop, Will, you know, you can get a fairly average burger, increase its vibrations, and the food even tastes better.
Well, I remember when you, me, James, and Ed went one day, and we wanted ice cream, and then you're like, well, of course, you're like, no, and then we're like, well, what about what Raymond Grace said about clearing the energy? And you remember we did that, and the ice cream tasted very healthy, and it tasted very nice.
Yeah, well, I've been doing that again. Like I found this place in Fremantle, this amazing vegan ice cream place, but it makes really good ice cream, but it's very high quality in vegan cones and that. And I've been going there and having a lot of ice cream lately, and I always make sure I energize it in some form.
Yeah, well, every time I eat, I energize it, pray for it.
Yeah,
Blessing the food.
Yeah, no, Grace, you'd be surprised I'm eating ice cream, but yeah, I've been eating it like quite regularly. So
I'm shocked as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so what you're saying, Will?
Oh no, I said I'm shocked as well that you're eating ice cream.
Well, this is one of the things I like what the scriptures teach, in that there's various levels of spiritual growth and evolution you go through, and you can't really shortcut any of it, so to speak. So you go through one level, and then you learn about the dark, and then you start to be able to learn to combat it, and then eventually, you know, you got to go through that battle. But then eventually, when you get through that battle, you start to realize that once you get your vibrational frequency to a high enough level, bit by bit, it becomes harder and harder to hit you. And I remember years ago, a preacher called Rick Joyner gave a really good metaphor. He talked about like a series of cliffs which you go up, and then you got these like archers and these dark beings shooting at you. But then as you get higher and higher, less and less beings can reach you, only the really high ones. And then when you get high enough, none of the arrows can hit you. But he says, of course, many kind of fall into delusion or spiritual ego and start thinking, oh yeah, I've already hit that point. Whereas, you know, when you've hit that point, because you just, you just notice there's no toxic energy, and there's always a humility knowing that, but for the grace of God, I can fall very quickly. You know, it doesn't take much to basically fall off the cliff.
Well, no, because all it takes is one little weakness, and then bam, you're done.
Yeah.
Well, because it's a constant work in progress. I mean, well, you and I are definitely in agreement that doing a clearing in yourself daily is what's needed. I mean, because you need, well, you want to be growing, because we're born to move. We're born to actually grow. We're not born to be stagnant and stay the same. We're meant, well, because the world is always changing, and you either change with the world or you fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like you said too. Life is about winning and losing.
Couldn't agree.
And I'm sure that everyone would agree. We don't want to be fucking losers like most people, right?
No, well, it's very interesting when my latest, as you know, journey has been to read the Bhagavad Gita and a lot more Krishna's teachings, and it's been quite mind-blowing for me as I've been reading it, because Krishna was a real warrior, and he actually taught his disciples, you know, to be a warrior and to win. But he also and he said, expect to win, but if you lose, just kind of go, okay, well, I can win in another form. The biggest thing though he taught his disciples was about winning and losing. But eventually he also said that as you reach what's called ultimate, you know, what's called samadhi or enlightenment, he says you actually reach this point where you start to see the light in everything. And it was said, and Krishna, it was said that he could literally go to a brothel and he would start rejoicing because he would see the purity of God and what was happening there. And he said that's one of the best ways you can overcome any what's called dark attacks, is when you start to embrace the dark and embrace it in yourself and embrace it in everything.
Well, yeah. Well, because we all have, even the scriptures say that light and dark are one and the same.
Yeah.
Because we have night and day. It's about owning the dark side and balancing it out with the light. You don't want too much of one. Well, if you have too much light, you get all these stupid woke movements like you do now. But then if you have too much dark, then you get the swindling and the self-serving. So, well, it's a fine balance of both.
Yeah, it was a very good scripture. I'm just actually trying to bring it up right now. I'm in Ecclesiastes. I'm just going to get it up now. It's Ecclesiastes 7. It's a really good scripture. Something that for years I never really quite understood what it was saying, whereas now I really get it. He says in chapter 7, and keep in mind that Solomon was there's been whole movements and religions like Freemasonry and others named after this guy. And when you read Chronicles and Solomon's temple building pattern on the lotus petal and that, he used so much sacred geometry and wisdom. And Ecclesiastes was the very last book he ever wrote, teaching what he'd learned from his mistakes as much as his, right decisions. And one of the things in Ecclesiastes 7, he says quite a few things. And he says, verse 16 especially, but I'll read the lead up to verse 16. Verse 13, he says, consider the work of God, for who can make straight which the Lord has made crooked? In other words, consider the work of God. In other words, some things are dark, but God has allowed it to happen. And I don't have the slightest doubt that what we've seen with COVID, the whole thing, has been one major test, one major opportunity for ascension and evolution, which I think the majority of humanity has completely missed. Because he says, consider the work of God, for who can make straight which he's made crooked? And then he says, in the day of prosperity, be joyful. But this is like, I know Grace would love this. This is a real DeMartini quantum balancing. In the day of prosperity, be joyful. But in the day of adversity and trouble, consider this. God has set one over the other, but none is greater than the other, to the end that no man should find anything after him. In other words, prosperity and adversity are really one and the same, is what he's saying in there. Then he says, all these things I have seen, in verse 15, in the days of my vanity and in my illusions. There was a just man that perishes in his righteousness, but yet there's a wicked man who prospers and experiences great life in his wickedness. So he's saying, in other words, that he sees a good man, or good woman, who dies young from cancer or something else, and then a wicked man, in other words, who completely owns their dark but prolongs their life in wickedness. And I often say that some of the most prosperous, well-balanced people I've met, or prosperous people I've met are sex workers. I've had clients like that, and they've got incredible, because they just own their desire for money, they own their sexuality, and sexual energy is one of the keys to wealth. They just, so it's a just man.
Well, it's quite simple as to why people who are dark can get prosperous and people who are good don't. Well, because the good people aren't living their truth, whereas the darker person actually is.
Oh,
but so the darker people they're the ones who are actually following the scriptures better than the good people. That's why they're winning.
Well, when I'll just read these two scriptures, then I'll make a comment on that, Will, because I agree with you and I'll explain why on that. So it says in verse 16, don't be overly righteous or good. And listen to this one carefully, everyone. Don't be overly righteous or good, neither strive to make yourself wise. For why should you destroy yourself? But equally, don't be too wicked and don't be too foolish, for why should you die before your time? So he's basically saying, don't be overly righteous, and don't strive for too much for wisdom, but equally don't be overly wicked. So he's basically saying, let there be a balance between your light side and dark side, and be comfortable with both. And what's interesting was in the courts, they use the King James Bible. And do you know, in Satanism, they use the King James Bible for their spells. And when I went to the Masonic Lodge, and I saw this with my own eyes on their open day years ago with some of my friends, just because I'd heard all this stuff, I was in this absolute astonishment. I saw they had a huge King James Bible, and they acknowledged that was their main book, which they use for their, for stuff. So they know the power of this ancient geometry and this ancient teaching. So, and there's a lady called Dr. Gal Rippinger, who's a PhD scholar of theology and religion, who did a huge work, and Dr. David Daniels, and both of them pretty much showed how there was a very direct occult agenda back in the 60s and 70s to shut down this kind of teaching so they could bring world control. So this whole thing that we're seeing, this whole Zionist plan, and many of you have heard it from the whole point of view of the whole, Rothschilds and all that, and hearing about that and the Zionist Illuminati plan. But you've got to go back deeper behind that to the esoteric layer. And anyone who's involved in shamanic arts, no, you can't take control of a city, of a nation, of a world, unless you also control the energy. So the dark arts requires a lot of work, basically, to do that. And so the first thing, and they know that to do that, but as soon as those step up in the light and use their stuff, they're limited what they can do. So they've got to shut down the effectiveness of scriptures, the churches, of the masculine and feminine energy. Basically, in Satanism, they teach you've got to get everything operating in reverse from what it should be. And that's how you take control of a city. And last year in West Australia, you may remember when our energy was so bad, when there's lockdowns, and when we checked, there was reverse chakras. They'd actually reversed all the chakras of the city, because every city's got its own chakras. And once we put them back on their correct spin, the lockdown stopped straight away. So,
yes. Well, that's exactly it, though. Well, because the scriptures, that they have everything, because the scriptures really can teach you everything, like how to be rich, or how to find a partner, or like how to raise kids. The scripture does have it all. That's what people don't.
I love it.
People don't get it. But the biggest issue is the fact that people don't read it from the third eye, so it just looks like a silly book.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, Dr. David Daniels, who PhD scholar, when he wrote about the King James Bible, he talked about the power. He said when this book was written in the 1600s by King James, he got 72 of the world's best translators and scribes. So the English is absolutely perfect. And he said it's actually written in a way to activate the brain, the heart, mind, brain coordination. So you actually improve your ability to read, your third eye, your brain when you use the King James. And I can remember when I used to use the NIV. And the NIV, the New International Version, was a direct example used by Rippinger of a Bible that was deliberately drafted and translated by Satanists, spiritists, and people to get out into the public. And when I used to read that Bible, although I'd get stuff, I used to feel my head was scrambled. As soon as I started using the King James, although at first I didn't understand everything, I felt a shift in my third eye. And for years, I didn't understand why until I read these books about 15 years after I first started doing them. And he says that, in fact, so powerful was the King James, they did a study of the King James. They found that mathematically, the actual King James was like perfect in its geometry. The biggest thing they found was they got a series of prisoners in jail who had very low reading IQ, got them to read the King James for a year. After a year, all of them were assessed at university reading level. So it also improves intelligence and improves brain, mind-brain coordination. And as you said, it literally teaches you everything. Like, I can honestly tell you, people read the scriptures, like what Proverbs teaches from Solomon, you would not get fucked around by women, or by men, because he clearly talks about the character, and he even says that what to avoid in a partner. And I, as much as I can, I followed what he said, and it's literally saved my life and my finances many times.
Well, yeah, like a big reason I've been able to do so well financially this year is the scriptures, because the scripture was a huge foundation. Because one said that the diligent with their affairs will be rich.
Yeah.
like that one, when I saw that one, I'm like, yeah, time. If I want to be diligent, I need to be organized. I need to prepare, do all these other things that I was weak that I'm naturally weak with. So then it helped me to really sort out all those out and make my
Yeah.
weaknesses my strength, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of very good stuff. Like I said, if you read this, and I think this is why I'm really glad I spent a lot of my life, I used to read often for 2 or 3 hours a day, just meditate on scripture. And like just some examples here, which is
like
really,
it's like with when I read the Bible and scriptures, I'm like a kid in a candy store.
oh, me too. I still read it, and I still get like so much out of it. And and what's interesting is years later, I've done Dr. John Demartini, Tony Robbins, and many of these speakers, and all of their stuff I've just taken from a lot of his teachings anyway. Like sorrow is better than laughter, for the sadness of the countenance of the heart is better. It is better to go to the house of mourning, in other words, to go on a shadow journey and deal with your deep shit, than go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men. The heart of the wise in the house of mourning, but the house of the fools is the house of mirth. It's better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for man to hear the song of fools. I mean, this is just, yeah. I mean, I love that one. And it even says in the other thing, it tells you in the scripture, for example, here in Isaiah 29, it actually talks about the fact that you can't really understand the scriptures and the highest teachings. And in fact, in some of the mystery schools, I reckon it took you 21 years of study before you be ready to understand the higher scriptures. And it actually says here that the vision has become to you as the words of a book which is sealed. And you say, read this, I pray you. And he said, I cannot, for it is sealed. So in other words, so as soon as your heart draws away from the higher work and draws away from doing your path, you disconnect from your higher wisdom. And it's all kind of written in here. So it covers just about every bit of wisdom you could ever want, really.
Yes. Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it activating just looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very activating, isn't it?
Yeah, and I find it's actually quite easy to understand once you read it from a third eye perspective, rather than when you don't read it from the head. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree when you said about the kid in the candy store, especially Solomon's teachings. I know Edward, he used to say to me, is his favorite book, a lot of his business wisdom that he uses in our business, he literally learned from the book of Proverbs.
Yes, and Proverbs has become one of my favorites as well, because as I'd said earlier, Proverbs was a big reason I was able to actually do well financially.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people talk about with wealth and with money and how, the love of, like, basically, if you're going to be religious or spiritual, you can't be wealthy, which the book of Proverbs and Psalms by two of the greatest kings in the Bible say the exact opposite. In fact, Solomon, all the way through Proverbs, he just says wealth is what gives you your voice, what gives you power and authority in society. But then he also warns you not to let money become your drive, so that your end of your days is full of sorrow.
Well, that's the thing. It's the lust of money that's the root of all evil. The lust of it.
Yeah.
But when it's a true love for money, like where you're using it to serve humanity and not just be self-serving, then it's really great. I think that's where that people get it wrong. That it's true that the lust of money is the root of all evil, but a true love for money can actually do a lot of good. So the money can also be the root of all good.
Yeah, I mean, Ecclesiastes, like I said, is one of these books. When I read it, I just have to kind of often ponder it. Like, for example, Ecclesiastes 1. And keep in mind that this man, the Freemasons and the Bible says he was the richest man that ever walked the earth, King Solomon, and the Freemasons teach that as well, And he actually says, this is what he's saying. Keep in mind, this is the last book this guy ever wrote. He said, I gave my heart to search out wisdom And then he says, I've seen all the works under the sun, and all is vanity and vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, which is exactly what, you know, I've often said to people. People don't change. People evolve, but they don't change, you know. If someone's got bad character, they tend to stay bad character without something extraordinary, you know. And he says here, I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly, and yet I perceived this was also vexation of spirit. From much wisdom is much grief, and he that increases knowledge increases sorrow. I mean, isn't that powerful?
Well, wait, did he increase of knowledge, he increases sorrow?
Sorrow. The more knowledge you have, the more sorrow, which is so true, because the more I've learned the truth, the more grief I feel and frustration when I see what's going on in the world.
Yes. Well, it's like now I really understand what Grace has said to me all these years.
Yeah.
That generally those who have knowledge tend to be know-it-alls, and they're the people who won't shift because all they're seeking is knowledge, but not transformation.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I understand what you mean, Grace.
Yeah. Well, he says, then he kind of continues his theme in here, when he says in verse 3 in chapter 2 that he basically made it his whole mission to get wealthy, to have lots of fun, to have wine, to have wisdom, to have houses, to have vineyards, to have gardens and orchard, have servants, maidens, great possessions and everything of his kind, silver and gold. And in fact, he says, I was great and I increased before all that were before me in Jerusalem, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I withheld not my heart any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. This was the portion of my labor. And then he says, then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor I'd labored to do, and all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. And then he says, then I even turned myself to the whole wisdom and madness and folly. In other words, I went on the path of wisdom. This is, by the way, everyone, what helped me become Dr. Bill and become a troll, reading this book.
Really? This book got you to be Dr. Bill?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like a troll, because this is what he's saying. I decided to be the wise man and also to be the fool, you know? And the way I got myself out of the census, people asked me, how did you do it? I became the fool. Like when the lady came to my house, I was so stupid that she literally got sick of me and she left and never came back. And so literally becoming the fool can be just as powerful as becoming the wise man or woman.
Well, because then, well, yeah, because when you're full, people underestimate you, and that's when you strike hard.
Yes.
Because I mean, the dark will be like, oh, this guy's a fucking idiot, and the next minute you can just burn him down.
Yeah, well, this is what this book teaches, the greatest wisdom. I mean, I've done everything. I've been celibate, for example, where until I was 26, I was a virgin. I've been married in monogamous relationships. I've had 2 really serious monogamous relationships in my life. And then I've been a complete, absolute slut and gone to escorts and done all kinds of stuff. You know, I've tried all things, and the truth is, as Martini says, it's all vanity. Like, I can't say any of them's better than the other. Like, the celibate was great and it had its problems. Being monogamously married was great and had its problems. Having escorts and sluts was great and it had its problems, you know.
Well, everything has drawbacks and and pros. So really, it's up to you to like decide which price is worth paying.
Well, the thing is, as soon as you're charged or weighted towards one thing, you instantly still got what's called desire. And the teachings of liberation from moksha and karma, anything you still have desire for will always bring you back to earth. You will track back. And so let's say that you are charged about being monogamous, which is what the majority of people are. Then that's going to keep pulling you back, you know. If you're charged about being celibate, you know, chances are you'll come back, you know. If you're charged about being a slut, you know, and thinking that because you're hurt and you're bitter at people. So the truth is, whatever path you're doing, you just do it with joy, you do it with all your heart, with all your might, and with all balance, and knowing that, you know, and those of you who are in relationships would know what I mean. You know, it can bring joy when you first have it, and in the moment you've got it, you see the problems, because suddenly you're dealing with someone else's energy. Because as soon as you're intimate with someone sexually and emotionally on a regular basis, You take on their karma and their energy. Whereas, you know, and then if you're single, there's often that yearning of desire for what you feel is missing, you know, like, oh, it'd be great to have a partner, you know. And then when you're celibate, you can often feel that, you know, like loneliness or whatever else. So it's just, yeah, I think everything's written in this book, and it's one of these things. It's hard to express it, isn't it? Well, I can see it in my third eye, and sometimes it's hard to explain, you know.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's not always easy to explain this, is it?
No. Like I love this verse 14. The wise man's eyes are in his head. In other words, his third eye, because the wise man's eyes are in his head. But the fool walks in darkness. You can see that in verse 14. And Jesus says that too. He says that, you know, if you're in the light, your whole body and your eye is full of light. And the word eye is your third eye. So if your third eye is in darkness, if you haven't opened up this sixth chakra, that is why people who are not open, full of light, will take the mark of the beast. They'll take it, you know, they'll get microchipped, because the microchip, the sixth, because the sixth chakra is here, the 666. So if you cannot overcome and open this up, you will take the 666 mark. So.
Well, exactly. Well, if you choose to stay ignorant, then don't be surprised when you go down with the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? But it's a smaller number now. You can see, I always like it when it's a smaller number, because you've got generally more serious people, so you can go deeper. Whereas if we had 50 people on the day, we wouldn't be talking this kind of stuff, most likely.
Oh yeah.
Maybe just give some feedback, everyone. Like I said, we're rambling a bit and just going through scripture and what we're sensing. Just you know, maybe make some comments how you're going. This is the other one I know Grace really likes, Will. It says, listen to this. This is what I've been through the last 6 months after Sammy's death, and the grief, and why I was so kind of, in a sense, became a fool for a number of months and didn't give a fuck about anything or anyone. Because he says in verse 15, I said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, so it happens to me. So why then did I even bother becoming wise? Why did I even bother getting a life purpose? I mean, this is also vanity. In other words, if you're an idiot, the same thing happens to you as if you're not an idiot, you know? So whether you become unstupid or not, or you remain in your stupidity and ignorance, he says things remain the same. For he says, for there's no more remembrance of the wise and of the fool, seeing that now which in the days to come shall be forgotten. In other words, it's all a memory. And how dies the wise man? He dies as the fool. And I love this one, because this is how I felt, as you know, 3 months ago. And people all thought I was mentally depressed, whereas I was just speaking my truth. He says, I hated life. In other words, I hated everything. I hated the planet. And remember, I told you a few months ago, I said, I hate this stupid planet. I want to get out of here, you know, sick of this dumbness, you know. What's the point of it all? Old age, all this shit. And this is what he's saying. I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous to me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yeah, I hated all my labor which I've taken. I hated my job. I hated my business. I hated all my cryptocurrency investing. I hated my financial teaching. I hated everything I did, because when I left, it would all go to the man after me. In other words, when I leave, when I finish this stuff, I'm gone, and then Edward, you guys will take it all. And then really what happened to me? I just came and I went and did fuck all. And then he even says, and then to make it worse, who knows at the end of your days whether you'll be a wise man or a fool? In other words, how do you know, William, that at the end of your days, people won't remember you as the biggest idiot that ever walked the earth and as some loser, or as a wise man? You think you'll be a wise man, because we all like to think we're going to be wise and people remember us. But for all we know, they may think of us as an absolute moron.
Well, that's why these scriptures are funny to me, because I don't actually give a fuck. I don't care if I'm not remembered or not, because it's not about doing God's work because it works out. It's about doing it because it's right.
Yeah, this whole book is an ego death. This whole chapter, if I could summarize it in modern day language, it's an ego death. But if you really catch this, it's a complete ego death. You realize that you serve because you just want to serve. I mean, I do my webinars because I want to do my webinars. Some days I don't feel like doing webinars. Some days I don't feel like serving, you know, but I just do it because, well, you just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the point. Well, you serve and you give because it's right, not because it's going to work out.
Yeah. And then I love how he finishes off here. He says, I went about my heart to despair of all of my labor. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and knowledge, yet to a man that has not labored, he will leave it to his portion. In other words, to someone who's done fuck all in their life will walk away with their wealth. This also is vanity and a great evil. And he says, for what has a man of all of his labor and of the vexation of his heart? For all his days of sorrows and his travail of grief, his heart doesn't take rest in the night. This is also vanity. So therefore, I love this conclusion here. There is nothing better for a man or woman than they should eat and drink and make their soul enjoy good in their labor. In other words, enjoy your work, enjoy your mission. You know, love what you're doing. Like, you know, if you're going to work, love it. Like, and I know with you, William, when you do clearings, you love doing it. You know, you love your work because this is a gift from God. For he says, for God has given to a man or woman who is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he gives travail, to gather and to heap up, to give to him what is good before God. This is vanity and vexation of spirit. It's powerful, isn't it?
Very, very much so. And when you mention about me loving the clearing, because I love it, yeah, it's like a little kid excitement came up for a moment.
Oh man, I love this stuff. Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah. Because this is the brilliance of it too. It also brings you back to your child, because I mean we're all children really, and as the scriptures said, unless you become like a little child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven.
Mate, do you know even in tantric teachings, they actually teach that. Like in my early foundations, they said this one of the greatest secrets of tantra, because I really did tantra to have wild sex and great orgasms, but the first thing I was taught was tantra is about opening the heart and the third eye. And they even said one of the biggest secrets of tantra is to go back to being like a teenager, like a child, where your heart is open, you're vulnerable, you easily fall in love, you giggle, you get crushes. Whereas he said the heart gets wounded from the basically the barrages of life. Their heart gets damaged. But he said tantra brings you back to that core softness and that core heart. And you know, and that's been probably my biggest journey since Sammy passed away, has been a complete ego death, you know, and realizing that, you know, what you do because you love it. Like I do, I actually realize I love doing this. My life has a lot of meaning when I'm doing spiritual teaching. I like helping people, you know, I like making a difference. I get a lot of happiness when I do that. I also get a lot of happiness from going to Time Zone and playing games. You know, I get a lot of happiness from eating good meals and eating ice cream. You know, I get a lot of happiness from just being a troll on Facebook and being a dick to someone just because I can be. I actually find I get great joy out of road rage. That's another thing. I just love losing my shit at a car and beeping them and yelling at them. It just brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
Yeah, and I've also realized that when it comes to dating, you know, women, I actually like bipolar women. I find them more fun, you know. So
yeah.
Yeah. Well, has anyone got any comments on our rambling so far, or is everyone just sitting there thinking we're a complete mob of Fruit Loops? Me especially. William at least has some semblance of normality.
Yeah. But hey, isn't it more fun to be wild than normal?
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone loves someone who's different.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Steve is enjoying himself, as we can see here.
Yeah, what does Dr. Bill say? When in doubt, insult, you know?
Yeah. Or the Warrenism, right?
Yeah, well, it's better to be a troll, you know. If in doubt, be a troll, you know. Dr. Bill. Yeah, Steve loves Dr. Bill, he misses him. Yeah, and I reckon this book of Ecclesiastes is one of the great books, you know. One of the really great books of the Bible. You know, I'd love to teach, you know, I'd love to teach, you know, chapter 12, this is the last chapter in the last book he ever wrote. And 12:12, of course, the ascension. He says, remember your creator in the days of your youth. You know, like this for you, Will, and for all young people. Remember your creator in the days of your youth while the evil days come not. And you can see this today. Like, that's the reason you're doing well in COVID and why James and Edward, because you guys remembered the creator in the days of your youth. You know, you listen to what, Proverbs says to listen to the teachings of your father and mother and listen to their wisdom. And I know Mum gave you a lot of wisdom. She taught you from young. And the scriptures say, remember now the creator. And that's what's helped you through this, because now that the evil days have hit the earth, the days of sorrow and communism and takeover, you've got that connection,
Yeah.
This is what it says here, because the days will come. He says the evil days when the sun, the light, the moon, the stars be not darkened, when the keepers of the house shall tremble, the door will shut in the street. There's so much here.
Yeah, right. Because right now I feel stronger than I've ever been.
Yeah.
And the days are getting better. Getting better and better. So if people really see the lesson, these can actually be the best days of their lives.
Yeah.
And I think another one too is to not forget to thank God, like when He blesses you.
Yeah.
Because, well, that's what I've been doing lately too, like thanking Him for blessing me with getting me these clients and all. And I find that He blesses me even more. Even it surprises me, like, wow, really that much? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I find anything you ask of God, He says, when you're coming from the right heart and motive, you'll be given it,
Well, that's just it.
And I think we move away from our heart and experience. That's why it says knowledge and wisdom brings sorrow. And I think this is something I learned from a psychologist. A lot of people deal with trauma through their intellect. So there's various ways to deal with trauma. One way is drugs. One way is just basically constant sex or porn. Another way is alcohol. But another way for people who don't do any of that is through their intellect. They create intellectual identities and constructs and knowledge. And that is why, in a way, I've always, when I was a pastor of church in Rockingham and was involved a lot with people who are, drug addicts and alcohol, I've got on very well with these people, because at least I find that these people, they're living their experience and they're feeling it. Whereas he says knowledge, and he says by this, and further of these, my son, be admonished, of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. I mean, that really pulled me up, because years ago I used to study every religious theology book thinking that was the answer to life. When I read this scripture, and I can thank Grace for this, she kind of used to say to me, life is more than the Bible and books, Warren. It's experience, it's feeling the Holy Spirit and living it. And that's why Solomon says, let us hear the conclusion of everything. And I love this. Fear God, keep His commandments, for this is the beauty of man. For God shall bring every work of the judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. In other words, that's why you're better off to just be an open book, put your shadows on the table. That's why I don't hide the fact, Like, there's a guy who said to me this week, he said, it's incredible with you. So I've never met someone who's so open with the fact they've been to escorts and all that. I said, look, anything which is my shameful shadow will be shouted from the rooftop. That's why so many celebrities and people get these scandals, because they're trying to suppress their dark. Whereas I'm like, no, I'm not suppressing my dark. I'm not suppressing my pain. I'm not suppressing the fact that I've done and do all that kind of stuff,
Well, that's just it, isn't it? Because we both noticed that the people who let everything out are the ones who tend to have the least issues. Whereas
Correct,
the ones who keep shit inside and turn it inward, they're the ones who have the most issues.
Yeah, because people who repress stuff and don't express what's going on in them, it will express. It will express in a health issue. It will express in a mental health issue. It will express and if you still don't deal with it, it'll express in the physical. Like one day you'll suddenly, get a life-changing illness. You'll have a bad accident. You'll have a scandal. You'll have a huge thing. Like, I remember years ago, this preacher who I knew was a very good preacher, guy called Jimmy Swaggart, amazing preacher, amazing singer, incredible, like, miracle worker and healer, but he so suppressed his sexual shadows, and he used to actually, like, literally scream from the pulpit about the adulterers and the wickedness of sin, and the wickedness of that. And then it was found out he was secretly, meeting boys and, when I said like older ones, like prostitutes, male and female, in his car and having sex with them, and it was a big scandal, and it came out. and he got up and did this huge repentance and apology and everything. And it's just a classic example of someone who just didn't own their dark. And I think so many great pastors and, priestesses have come down because of that reason, not being able to own their shadows. And that's one of the big, and this is really relevant to the whole topic of black witchcraft and the dark arts, because what I learned is the biggest way the dark arts attack you is they see your shadows and your unresolved sins and unresolved shame. So if you got unresolved shame or an unresolved issue in your heart or life, you will be hitting that. If the love of money drives you, you will get tempted. If you have a shamefulness and fear about being exposed because of things you've done, it will come out in the open.
Well, yeah. Well, I think it's quite simple, really. People just need to let go of their emotional charges, because the problem is when you're emotionally charged about something, then that's when you can get shit like with Jimmy Swaggart, because
absolutely,
you need to balance it and love it.
Mm.
Well, it's like Grace would say, it will keep coming back until it's loved.
Yeah.
So it's really about dealing with your emotional charges and not trying to suppress it, creating a weird identity.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this one here too, It says, a fool is full of words. This is chapter 10. A man cannot tell what shall be and what shall be after him. Who can tell him? But I love that. A fool is full of words. That's one of the things I loved about Grace, because everything's got a purpose, Now, I was very blessed to be married to Grace because, as I said, number one, she's a great mum, a great co-pastor, great business partner, but she taught me a lot. We taught each other a lot. Like, she really taught me, like I used to use a lot of words and intellect to deal with my trauma and fear and sense of kind of, guilt and unworthiness, and I'd try and rationalize it, and she'd hit me with it, and like she'd say, stop speaking words, no, stop justifying, I'm not interested, That is why I always a bit of a giggle when I listen to certain business team meetings. I hear teams start to justify, and knowing Grace, I start to laugh. I'm like, yep, you're going to be hammered now. And sure enough, Grace will hammer it. And I'm like, I love it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just such a good book, this, isn't it?
Very good book.
Like, here's another one, Will. Like, we talked before about money. By much slothfulness, in other words, by laziness, the building decays, and through idleness of the hands, the house drops. In other words,
Yeah, I actually read that like a few weeks ago or so. It was it's what's helped me a lot to stay focused and really stay productive.
Yeah.
It also talked about the sloth will always crave, but they'll never get.
Yeah.
Whereas the diligent, they'll always be rewarded with bread, with money, everything.
Well, that's what he said. The hand of the diligent grows rich. And he says, and he or she who is greedy for gain and for quick profit comes to sorrow.
Yes. Well, you would notice that the people who are more greedy and slothful, they're the ones who never have any money or anything.
Well, they get it often. And the worst thing is often make a lot of money. They'll go into cryptocurrency, become a millionaire in 6 months. And because greed is driving them, when they lose the money, they fall apart and their life is worse than when they started. So,
well, yeah, I think that's been there's been one problem with the internet, that people try to find quick and easy ways to make money and move away from ethical and proper like business practices and all.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've noticed that, right? Like with scamming and everything. So right now what we need to bring back is the spirit into that business world.
Yeah, bring the spirit back and ethics. That's why we're so big on that, And then you attract who you are. So if you start being unethical in your life in secret, you will attract it. And this is the law of attraction. That if you're attracting scams or unethical behavior towards you, it's purely the energetic radiations and vibrations coming from you. It means at heart you're a scammer, but you're not owning it. It means you're unethical, and you're not owning it. It's that simple. And universal law, as Solomon teaches, is very, very pure. And you can see this in Ecclesiastes 9, verse 2. He says, all things come alike to all. I mean, look at that. All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked. There is something to the good and to the clean. To him that sacrifice and him that doesn't sacrifice. Like, you think about it. You got Josiah and you got Edward. Edward has got an amazing work ethic and discipline. Josiah's been the biggest bum I've ever met in my life. And yet you can see that he's like the Dowmaster. He does nothing and just things come to him, you know? Because when he sacrifices not and does fuck all, he does it with conviction, you know? And it says, as is the good, so is the sinner.
Isn't it? Well, it's like, it reminds me of that meeting that you once did, and then you're like, so what productive things are you going to do, Joe? Oh, nothing in my life is productive.
I said, how do you plan to change that? He said, I don't.
Yeah, I don't. I'm just going to keep playing.
Yeah, the funny thing is, that's what he said to, and but months later, he said to me, look, at some stage, I'm probably going to find a purpose. Right now, I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to be a kid, have the time of my life, and be a bum. I said, well,
he's living his truth better than most kids that age. That's for sure.
Mate. I learned a lot from him. Edward reckons he learned a lot because Edward used to take life very seriously, and he and Joe.
I certainly remember that.
Yeah, and Joe learns a lot from Joe because, you know, he just literally, you know, because he was so calm about the fact that he did nothing and didn't have any guilt about it. And, you know, I know Grace has always said this to me, and I agree with her. She says, don't you remember, Warren? She said when he was a baby, we had a lady who was who cared for him because Grace was busy in the business with me. And she literally used to pray over him all day, constantly, Jeanette. You know, remember that, Grace, where she would pray in tongues constantly over him and speak the scriptures over him all the time, that this kid would be great. And you can just see it in him, the power of a kid who literally from his birth has had scriptures and higher messages spoken over him.
Yes. Yeah, I certainly went through the ringer as a kid.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, and probably one of the last ones I'll mention here, this is Ecclesiastes 9, and this is something I want to share with everyone and really take this to heart, because if you get this will change your life, you know. This is the lead-up scriptures to what I'm going to say. So verses 7 to 10 are the lead-up, and then verse 11 and 12 are the ones. So 7 says, go your way, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has accepted your works. In other words, don't go out of here with any guilt. If you want to go and have a big meal, go and eat it with joy. You know, if you feel like going out and having an orgy, do it with joy. If you feel like going and getting drunk at a party, do it with joy, you know, and do it with conviction, not out of a sense of guilt or a sense of emptiness, you know. Let your garments be white. Let your heart lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom you love all the days of your life. In other words, if you're married or have a partner, then absolutely give that partner your best, you know. Love them, give them your best, live joyfully, have the time of your life with them. Notice what I did, you know, after Sammy passed away, I can honestly say, Sammy, I had a great 4 years of her. Like, I really did. I lived joyfully with her, you know. She was fucking great, you know, right till the end, till the last moment, you know. I gave her my best. She gave me her best. And I look back on that whole thing like that was just fucking amazing, you know. And, you know, after her, there was a girl I saw for a couple of months, as you know, William. And honestly, you know, it ended out of the blue. I got ghosted. And yet, you know what? Those 2.5 months of her were just fucking awesome. You know, I lived joyfully with her. I had the time of my life with it. And it says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. In other words, do your best for everything you do. If you're going to go out, if you're going to do business, do it your best. If you're going to be a party animal, do it your best. If you're going to be a bum and a lazy little shit, be the laziest little troll-like shit that's ever walked the earth, you know? For there is no work, no device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave when you go. Because when you're sitting there and your last breath, you're not going to look back and think, oh man, I wished I'd worked harder. And you know, no, you're going to go back and go, you wish you'd done more experiences. So there's nothing in the grave. Once you're gone, you are gone.
Well, and then it's like I told, it's like I told you, I love being a party animal.
And you're doing it with conviction.
And I do it with conviction.
Yeah. And here's the last one I'm going to share. This is the message I want you all to go away with. And then I'm going to open it up for comments and discussion, you know. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, in other words, a super intelligence, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread and food and money and riches to the wise, nor riches to men and women of understanding, great intellect, university qualifications, business training, nor favor to men and women of great skill and competency. But here's the secret, but time and chance happens to them all. And I remember being in Las Vegas and seeing this guy who was just made a shitload of money, just literally putting 25 grand bets, you know, on Baccarat, you know. Time, everyone has their moment when everything just works for them. And that's the moment you cash in. And everyone has their moment in life when the shit that happens and everything you do, nothing works. But the secret is time and chance happens to everyone. For man and women do not know their time. For as the fishes that are taken in an evil net and as birds are caught in a snare, so are the sons of men snared in an evil time when it falls suddenly upon them. And the last 2.5 years has been a living example of that. People just literally not seeing the times. People still saying, well, I want to travel, and then going out and traveling, getting locked down in places because you just didn't see it at the time. We're in an evil time right now. You know, we really are. And you just have to be aware of that. But know that time and chance happens to them all. And for some of you, you're in that season when the shit's hit the fan, and just kind of when that's happening, just go into the mountains, just go into the quiet place. But if something in you knows your time and chance has come to you, my sense is that a few of you here, it's your moment. Something in you tells you this is my time. You want to, you know, realize it's got nothing to do with your intellect. It's got nothing to do with your wisdom. It's got nothing to do with how strong you are, how smart you are. You could be the dumbest, stupidest, troll-like idiot on this webinar today who's fucked up in the head, bipolar, all kinds of shit. And yet you could walk out and literally, within 12 months from now, be prosperous, be healthy, be abundance, be everything that you ever dreamed of. So what do you reckon, Will?
Oh yeah, 100% agree. I mean, because everyone has a time and chance, no matter who you are. But I think, where people need to learn is to be able to recognize it. Once they recognize that, then they take dominion, take charge.
Yeah.
Like for me this year, when you were telling me toward the end of last year, when you told me that you sensed that this year for me was going to be where I'll take dominion and focus on my career and finances, well, I decided to take you up on it and put my trust in that, and I also felt the call for that myself. And since then, it's been great. It's worked like gangbusters.
Yeah, look, I agree. I love what I just reading a couple of comments. Will Christine says, I really enjoy interpretation of scriptures. Thank you. Judith says, I started to read the Bible 25 years ago, didn't understand and stopped reading it. Since been listening to interpretation of the Bible, I've opened a different way of understanding it. And I feel I want to have a copy and start reading again. Absolutely, yeah, totally. Well, let's open it up, William. What do you reckon? Let's open up the discussion now for people.
Agreed.
So Grace and Steve, you can come back on, and love to hear your comments and wisdom on this, and anyone else who's got any great wisdom to share.
Well, Steve is your twin. I'm sure he might have something, hey?
I just want Dr. Bill to come back. Then all my problems will be solved.
Mate, just go on a pandemic vacation, Steve.
Oh, look, it's I agree with Christine. It's hearing the interpretation of scripture puts a really different spin on it, and you know that deepens understanding, and certainly in these times, you know, I think that's needed more than ever. And I also, probably the thing that resonated with me the most, more so as a reminder, was that you know, whatever you're doing, be good at it. If you are the Josiah bum, be a damn good one, you know. But if you're not, be good at whatever it is, you know. And the other thing too, which resonated, was that that third eye, the reference to the third eye and seeing, and yeah, that really touched a nerve in me as well.
Yes, because I'm sure you would agree, Steve, that when you read it from a third eye perspective, it's very different. It's like something unlocks.
Yeah, totally. And I think the interpretation of Scripture today helped to unlock that third eye, because it gave a different way of looking at it that was not perhaps literal, which I think I default to, or at least I have defaulted to in a lot of my life. And that's why probably, if I'm honest, the Bible didn't have a lot of meaning for me earlier in my life. And it's only come into meaning through that reading it through the third eye and seeing the power of, Psalm 23 and Psalm 91, through the death of my mother and those sorts of things. So, it's been really valuable today.
Anyone else? Grace is still here.
Yeah, I'm wondering where Grace is too.
Grace is doing a Warren.
Oh, it's Christine here. I just wanted to add to that my comment about the scriptures and understanding them in a totally different way. It's just like it's a whole new thing, because I never used to read the Bible really until I started working, I guess, with you and Grace. But the understanding of the real meanings of those scriptures just puts a whole different aspect to your life, really. And it's been really eye-opening for me. And I just love listening to your interpretation. And then, Grace and I talk it through, and it's really just incredible, because there's often more layers than just one in those scriptures as well. So really, it's quite amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, to understand scripture can take, you've got to plow right through it, Christine, and but it really is worth understanding the higher teachings. It's just, I love how you listen to it. It takes a wise man or woman to listen to this kind of stuff, and it's great that you do.
Actually, it's quite fascinating, because it sort of takes you to a whole different place, challenges your values and makes you realise that what you've learnt over the years, plenty of years, is not actually true.
No.
I mean, I didn't grow up with the Bible, actually. I first started reading it at when I was 21. So something happened to me spiritually. I had a calling, shall we say. I went through a lot of turmoil in my younger years. And by the time I came to land with the text, with the Bible, it was more mainly, and I still view it this way, is again, it's a personal thing. It's a personal instructions and how you see it. And the way I look at it is that there's so much information, and it's so much aliveness in the book. And that's with any text that you actually read, any ancient texts or ancient scrolls in history that has life, that has spirit, that has true conviction. Because when you look at the ancient scrolls or texts from history of man, there's more conviction to it, isn't there? There's more intensity, there's more clarity, where and there's such a strong foundation in it. So I guess my interpretation of the Bible is that, again, I read it very slowly. I've been stuck, for example, on John 1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now I've been stuck on that one verse for over 20 years now. And to be honest, I haven't read all the Bible either. I haven't read all the books of the Bible. I go by intuition. I get guided to where I need to go, where I need to be. Because again, you know, it's written by men who is led by the Spirit, by influence, by the energy, by the frequency in that time. And so obviously it's important for me where it resonates and where I'm led to it. And again, it's what you choose, what's your diet in that time. It's like, you know, Christine and all the other farmers would know that there's seasons to everything. There's seasons of fruit and vegetables. And so to me, there's seasons in what is in the text. And depending on what you need to feed yourself in that time, I'm always open to myself whether I read that or I also read Tao Te Ching, and any ancient text that I can grab my hands on, and having a look at it holistically, using that as well as all the other modalities that I've been led to. So in a sense, I use that as a guidelines in what I need, I'm needing in that moment of time.
Yeah, well, I love what you said about your own truth. And I think for me, having read all the different texts, Grace, like, you know, Pista Sophia and Bhagavad Gita and the Book of Mormon, and I think you start to develop your own truth and experience. And the biggest thing, I've summarized everything down, you know, in a nutshell, which I absolutely love, is yeah, like, for example, for me, the whole idea of old age and death, I just always thought it's just stupid. Like, I remember when I went to Toby's seminar years ago, and the excitement I felt when he talked about it just wasn't normal. And in the ancient, many thousands of years ago, people regularly would transmute back into 12th dimensional frequency complete, and they would descend into a Christ avatar. So he said, what we're living in now is like a prison planet and in a lower form of consciousness. And the challenge is to get yourself out of it. And that's why to me, old age, death and sickness, I'm like, how stupid. And I'm like, I either plan the ascension and go back to the original blueprint, or, you know, yeah, just basically, if I, you know, do have to die young, get out of here as fast as I fucking well can, you know, while I'm still, you know, leave on a high as I see it, you know, but that's my plan B.
Yeah, well, I look into the Gnostic teachings as well. I love the Gnostic teachings because they look at all the different religion. And I've always, you know, we've been talking about this for years, Warren, that in the Christian church, I used to be called Jezebel, you name it. I used to be called the witch, or no, not so much as the witch, but Jezebel. The dark feminine woman who leads people astray, because to me, there is truth in everything. It's just a matter of filtering it through. I mean, this is my personal outlook on life, is that every religion has their own truth.
Absolutely.
And I just glean from that. And whatever is truth and resonates for me in that teaching, I will take it for me. And I'll take everything that is congruent, that resonates with me, in order for me to do what I need to do in living this life. And so, you know, whether it's Buddhist or monks or Hinduism, anything like that, the cult, as in, you know, the old magic with a K. There's a lot of things in there that who knows, you know. The only thing we get guided is by our inner voice, by our intuition, and you just got to follow that inner voice within you that really resonates, because no one else can tell you what is right or what is wrong for you, or what is supposed to be for you. Yeah, you're the only one that can know that. And so I glean from all areas. So I have been in the King James for years, because of my background in the churches that we've led and all the teachings that I've had. But over the years, I've allowed myself to expand to multiple other modalities, so that you can really, you know, to have the full mysteries of life. It's no wonder we live in infinity, isn't it? we live on infinity and fractals because goodness, can we ever get the final answer to anything, to life?
Love it. Well, anyone else got any challenges or comments before we finish?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
just
I'd
got
just
one
like to
other.
say-
There you go, Suzanne.
No, you go, Steve.
I was just going to say that it was really interesting, Grace, because that's in traditional religious terms, that's like a heresy. You know, that you're questioning. You know, where and therefore the guilt comes back in of, oh well, if you were a really religious person or spiritual person, you wouldn't be questioning like that. So I just love that. That comment about what resonates for you internally and personally. It's very liberating compared to traditional religious teachings. That was all.
Yeah, you get burnt on the stake, hey?
Yes, Jezebel, you would.
Yeah, I was burnt multiple times.
Well, isn't that what the scriptures say? It says that Jezebel kills all the apostles and prophets. So that's what she does.
So, well, really, we're blessed if the world hates us because we're not of this world.
Yeah.
And you know that very well, hey, Grace, when people persecute you.
Yeah, well, it's just getting my muscles stronger.
Yeah. Well, hey, if people persecute you and charge about you, that's when you can wind them up.
Yep.
As Warren would say, you just be a troll.
Exactly. So what are you going to say, Suzanne?
Oh, I'd just like to say that throughout my life, I'm not like I was brought up as a child in the Church of England, High Church of England, and hated it. Then went to the Presbyterian Church, and that was more fun. But I've more been non-religious because I'm me. I'm a consciousness being, and I've come to this planet to express and to experience. And a lot of what I experience, I've done a lot of things in my life, and when that time is over, then I move on to something else. And I've always known that whatever I do, as long as I do it from my highest self, from my heartfelt self, from my God spark within, that I will always be protected. And I've had quite a few experiences in my life where like a really serious car accident and being gassed in a shower and a few other things. And in those times, I've actually seen Yeshua or Jesus or whatever you would like to call him, but I've actually seen him and been with him. And he has been with me all my life. And if I feel lonely, or if I feel not with it, or if I feel like I'm not recognized by anybody, I always know that I have that being with me to help me to be who I am. And if I stuff up, then I know it's my stuffing up, and that I'm going to learn from that and experience something else. So basically, I just like to keep life as simple as possible, do the basic things as long as I don't hurt anybody. And that comes to even killing spiders or mice or anything like that. I feel like it's not my right to actually to take another life. But throughout my life, I just want to be me, and I want to experience and express the best of who I am, because as William says, we don't come from here. You know, we're stardust. We come from other places, but we all go back to source, and source is experiencing through us. in what we do. So let's make the best of what we're doing, be in joy, love, just right till the very end, just love, because that's what we all are. We are all love. And we need to, first of all, love ourselves, be self-worthy, be, when you look in the mirror, be able to look at your eyes and say, yes, I love you. I love you for who you are. And allow other people to maybe see that. And if they can't, well, that's their journey. So, you know, I just basically keep life as simple as I can and stay away from big words and things, because a lot of people don't understand them anyway. So, and I don't understand them either. So I just, you know, just move along as me. And one day, Warren, we'll all get to be dead, but it's just like taking off our fur coat or our winter jacket or whatever and moving on to another experience or another being. So let's not be miserable in old age. And if we get to be miserable in old age, oh God, let's get out of here. Please, spaceship, come and pick me up. I've had enough. Meantime, I enjoy what I'm doing.
Count it all joy every step of the way. So rule number 6. So thanks for sharing, Suzanne. On that note, Warren.
All done.
All done. Thank you so much for being
Anything
here.
else, William?
What's that, Warren?
I said, anything last comment from you?
Not really. I really enjoyed today, actually. It was great.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, cool. Have a great week, everybody. And we'll see you in the next Zoom meeting.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.